Every sport has legendary rivalries. In Counter-Strike, we have had Fnatic vs NiP, Na'Vi vs Gambit, FaZe vs G2. But what happens when one side never gets to fight back? In Counter-Strike, Astralis and Liquid should have been equals. They were the two best teams in the world, destined to fight for the best trophies. Instead, what we got was one of the most one-sided beatdowns in CS history. Because every time these two giants met, Astralis made sure the rivalry wasn't a rivalry at all. By the end of 2017, Counter-Strike was entering a new era. The days of old dynasties, Fnatic's dominance, NiP's early domination, SK Gaming's prowess were starting to disappear, and with the #1 spot wide open, two teams were about to step into the spotlight. Astralis from Denmark and Team Liquid from North America. 2017 for both teams were mediocre. They were both good enough to be relevant, often making playoffs in S-tier tournaments, but usually not much further than that. Astralis already had a reputation as a top contender, sometimes. They had won the ELiGUE Major in 2017, but the results overall were inconsistent. Sometimes brilliant, sometimes underwhelming. But that all changed in February of 2018, when a single roster move transformed them into a juggernaut. Out went Kjaerbye and in came Magisk. With Magisk added to the lineup, Astralis finally had the perfect five. Device on the AWP, glaive as the masterful in-game leader, dupreeh bringing explosive entries, Xyp9x as the clutch minister, and now Magisk, who brought extra firepower and stability. Together, they played Counter-Strike like no one had before. Their utility usage was legendary. Perfectly timed smokes, grenade damage that felt illegal, executes rehearsed down to the millisecond. They didn't just win maps, they suffocated their opponents. And by mid-2018, Astralis weren't just good, they were already becoming the team everyone feared. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, a new challenger was rising, Team Liquid. For years, North America had carried the stereotype of being undisciplined, flashy aim but poor tactics. Most NA teams fell short when it actually mattered, and Liquid wanted to rewrite that narrative. So they picked up a very good and stable rifler in NAF that elevated their levels massively. Their full lineup was a mix of rising stars and veteran players. ELiGE, one of NA's most consistent riflers. Twistzz, a prodigy with insane aim. NAF, the reliable playmaker. Nitro, the versatile in-game leader and sometimes AWPer. And eventually Stewie2k, the fearless playmaker from Cloud9's major winning roster. And where Astralis played perfect methodical Counter-Strike, Liquid thrived on raw firepower. They loved bold plays, taking duels and overwhelming teams with sheer mechanical skill. And that's what set the stage. Denmark versus North America. Structure versus firepower. Discipline versus chaos. On paper, it looked like the perfect rivalry, one destined to produce instant classics. But what followed was anything but even. In my opinion, the rivalry truly kicked off in a big way during the grand final of ESL Pro League Season 7 in 2018. This was a best of 5 and Liquid's start was rough, to say the least. Map 1 was Dust 2, and if you blinked during that game, you might have missed it entirely, because they lost 16-1. That's not just a loss, it's a statement. Next up, Nuke. Now, the Danes were basically gods on this map, so Liquid had their work cut out for them. They did manage a respectable 6 rounds on the CT side in the first half. Not great, but not embarrassing either. The final score, 16-14 in favor of Astralis. Seriously close, but still a loss. Then Liquid managed to bounce back on Mirage, taking a nail-biting 16-14 win. Finally, some hope for North America. But Astralis was known to be lethal on Inferno, and here's where the story gets a classic Liquid choke. At halftime, Liquid led 10-5. Many thought this could be their way back, but no. They only managed to grab 2 more rounds the entire second half, and Astralis closed it out 16-10, winning both the title and leaving Liquid with a silver medal, and truly kicking off this intense rivalry. Fast forwarding to their next face-off, the grand final of ECS Season 5. Liquid fans thought this could be our time, it's got to be our tournament, but In the end, it wasn't. Astralis took it 2-0, though both maps were relatively close. A month later, another grand final confrontation at the ELiGUE CSGO premiere. This time, Liquid barely put up a fight, 20 rounds across 2 maps. This felt more like an Astralis victory lap than a contest. Not long after that, the teams met at the FACEIT London Major semi-finals this time. Would Liquid finally put on a show? No, more stompage, losing 16-8 and 16-7. And Astralis went on to win the major, bagging yet another notch in their already impressive belt. And this major loss was followed by another 2 tournament exits by Liquid following their matchup against Astralis. By the end of 2018, some matchups were closer, specifically in the ESL Pro League Season 8 finals. Liquid did manage to get a comfortable win on the first map with a 16-8. The following 2 maps were very close, with Liquid even being in the lead of the second map. But Liquid just needed that extra little push over the finish line, which would soon arrive. In January of 2019, Liquid finally ended the streak by edging Astralis in a 2-1 fashion in a grand final in the Kjaerbye Power Masters, marking the first time Liquid won over Astralis in a grand final. Sweet victory after years of getting steamrolled. After this, many expected a grand finals appearance from both of the giants in the first major of the year in Kjaerbye, but Liquid met an up-and-coming ENCE in the quarterfinals, where they managed to lose in a very close matchup. And without the presence of Liquid in the grand finals, the tournament was locked in for Astralis. But then something incredible happened. Team Liquid exploded onto the scene with one of the most historic runs CSGO has ever seen, and these wins were fueled by the arrival of Stewie2K, an infusion of youthful swagger and confidence, and the coach of Adren just before their matchup against Astralis in the Kjaerbye Power Masters. They managed to win IM Sydney in a thrilling 3-2 over Fnatic, dominated Dreamhack Masters Dallas, crushed ESL Pro League Season 9 where they finally knocked Astralis out of a tournament, and capped it all off with a massive victory at ESL 1 Cologne. And that win in Cologne completed their Intel Grand Slam in a blistering 63 days, smashing all previous records by almost half a year. And they took home a cool $1 million and silenced doubters everywhere. But here's the catch. During that epic run, the 2 teams only met once, and Liquid did manage to win that one in a close 2-1. This was the period where Astralis seemed to take a break from S-tier tournaments and focused on blast events instead. Out of the 8 S-tier events between both 2019 majors, Liquid attended 5, Astralis 3. This led to the 2 teams only having 2 overlapping tournaments. So if Astralis had been attending more tournaments, who knows what might have happened. The 2019 Starladder Major in Berlin saw the rivalry renewed in an intense quarterfinal clash, where Astralis once again continued their major domination and steamrolled Liquid with a quick 2-0. Later that year, Liquid met Astralis again, in the ESL 1 New York semifinals and then the Blast Grand Finals, and Astralis continued to deny Liquid the trophies, winning 2-1 and then 2-0. Throughout the whole year of 2019, either Astralis or Team Liquid was top 1 in the rankings on HLTV, except a couple of weeks, which just shows how good both teams performed and how much closer it was in 2019 than it was in 2018. Team Liquid undoubtedly owned the period between the 2 majors, while Astralis took both majors and the second season of the year, as Liquid failed to win a single trophy after their win at IEM Chicago in the start of the second season. Not long after this, tournaments were forced to go online, which, in my opinion, ultimately ended this rivalry. Between 2017 and 2021, Liquid won only 20 maps out of 86 attempts, a painful statistic. That means that Liquid's map record is 20-66, a mere 23% win rate, including both online and offline play. And breaking it down by series formats, in best of 3s, Liquid won just 3 out of 24, and in best of 5s they were winless at 4-0. Even in best of 1s, the record wasn't great, with just 3 wins in 11 matches. And no matter the stage or round of the tournament, Liquid struggled. Against Astralis in group stages, they won only 4 out of 25 matches, and they were 1-2 in quarterfinals. And they failed to win a single one in semifinals. And in finals, they managed a horrible 1-9 record, a 10% win rate. But Liquid did manage to pick up victories on 6 different maps over the years, but one of those was just a solitary train win at EPL in 2018. Here's a breakdown of wins to losses on key maps against Astralis during this time frame. On Inferno, they had a 26% win rate. On Mirage, they had a 57% win rate. On Overpass, 18%. Dust 2, 20%. Vertigo, 50%. Train, 20%. Nuke, 0%. Cash, 0%. Perhaps the most saddening figures are Liquid's total inability to ever secure a win on Nuke, the cornerstone map for Astralis and one they picked very frequently. This was partly because Liquid banned Train so often, leaving Astralis with Nuke as their reliable map. And Inferno was often a map of broken dreams for Team Liquid, though it is the map on which they notched their highest number of wins against Astralis in 6, but these victories were heavily overshadowed by the 17 losses they suffered there. These stats show just how bare it was for Liquid during these years against Astralis, very rarely being able to catch a break. Astralis' dominance over Team Liquid in 2018 and 2019 was shaped by several critical factors that kept this rivalry so one-sided for so long. First, the depth of Astralis' preparation was nearly unparalleled. Astralis developed an almost scientific approach to studying opponents, especially Liquid. Their coaches and analysts meticulously broke down every detail of Liquid's playstyle, their tendencies, favorite strategies, timings, and even individual player habits. And this allowed Astralis to craft game plans that perfectly countered Liquid's strengths and exploited their weaknesses, forcing Liquid out of their comfort zone in every matchup. Twistzz even saying that every time he played Astralis, they were really good at making him feel useless as he got isolated so often. And beyond just strategy, there was a significant mental block for Liquid. Astralis was like the North American team's kryptonite, a giant they felt psychologically powerless to beat. Even in games where Liquid played well or had the lead, the fear of losing to Astralis seemed to creep into their minds. And this created a self-fulfilling prophecy where pressure mounted in crucial moments, often leading Liquid to choke or falter when it mattered the most. Astralis also had the crucial edge of enormous experience in high-pressure situations. Their core roster played together consistently for years, building trust and synergy that comes from having been there before. In finals and semifinals against Liquid, Astralis showed remarkable poise and calm. Meanwhile, Liquid, despite their immense raw firepower, frequently struggled to close out big games, with their nerves often getting the best of them. In short, Astralis combined superior tactical preparation, mental resilience, and championship experience to dominate the Liquid matchups. Liquid had arguably some of the most mechanically skilled players in CSGO history, but without the mental and strategic edge, they were repeatedly outclassed by a team that seemed to play a different game entirely. And this unique mix of factors is what made this rivalry so one-sided, despite what should have been close matchups in terms of skill. If Liquid had overcome the mental barrier and learned to match Astralis' preparation and calm under pressure, this rivalry might have been a much closer fight. But during Astralis' peak, they were just operating at a level that was hard for anyone, even Liquid, to reach. For Liquid, beating Astralis always felt like climbing Mount Everest, and they only reached the summit a handful of times. For Astralis though, it was just another day at the office. And maybe that's what makes this rivalry so unforgettable, because sometimes the most interesting rivalries aren't balanced at all. I appreciate you watching throughout the whole video, and I hope to see you again soon.